I am Dragon Nyx, and I'm just gonna give a little brief like Procreate tutorial. And I'm going to just cover as many things as I can that I think are important for when you're first starting out with Procreate. Um, I've been using Procreate for 3 years, and I've been doing digital art for 5 years. And now do digital art as part of my income. So there's going to be some things that are second nature to me that I might forget to mention. So like bear with me there. Um, but what I have here is I have a camera display so that you can see my hands because gestures are a very important part of Procreate. And then I also have this display over here because I know that my display is a little blurry on the camera. So if you need to see something in detail, it can be shown there on that capture. But yeah. The first thing when you open Procreate is it'll bring you like right to the menu. Not when you like first download the app, but it'll bring you to like this. This is like all of the pieces you have ever made in Procreate all go here. And then within that, we can make stacks. So I'm going to show stacks first. They didn't exist when I first got Procreate. They are essentially the folders of Procreate. Here I have all of these different prints, all are in that one stack. So to make a stack, there's two ways. You could either take one of your pieces, drag it on top of one until it makes a blue area. You can place it directly into the stack like this. To unstack something, you take the piece, go back, and then, it's a little finicky because it is all touch controls, right? So, um, you can take things out of stacks, or you can select the pieces you want stacked together, and then up here it says stack, and so you can stack them. Um, so that's stacking. It's pretty easy. You cannot make stacks within stacks, and that is the bane of my existence. Maybe one day they'll update that, and the day they will, I will cry tears of joy. To make a piece, you press this plus button. It'll have some default sizes for you to choose from here. I've made a bunch more, especially since I'm an emote artist and I have like the size that I use to draw my canvases for emotes as well as, the Twitch standard sizes. Um, but if in order to make a new canvas, you can just pick whatever size you want to make a new one. There's a little plus button up here, and this will bring you into a menu where you can just height, width, DPI, maximum layers. I suggest keeping your DPI at 300 unless you have a reason to lower it. That just maintains print quality if you ever choose to print any of your digital art. There's different color profiles too. The only reason those would mainly matter is RGB are usually used for digital pieces that will stay online forever. Take a Twitch emote. It will always be seen on a screen. And our computers use RGB color, so we want to make our art in on RGB color. And then CMYK is if you're going to make print media. I don't know the difference between each of these individually. I'm not an expert, but that's just the major difference. RGB is for digital, CMYK is for printed. Time lapse settings. Procreate will automatically make a time lapse of every piece that you make. So this is just settings for that if you have preferences there. And then other canvas properties like default background colors, are backgrounds hidden, things like that. So that's how you make a new size if you want to make a new canvas size. But otherwise, let's open up a like pre-existing piece here so that we can get into the details inside of Procreate itself. So basic UI, up here is our layers. As you can see in this piece that I've already made, I have a bunch of layers, and in order to turn one on and off, you can just press the little check mark next to it, and um, it will turn whatever that layer is on and off. Like the color in this one. Wait, actually, yeah. I have groups in this file as well, as you can tell. So I have all of the colors grouped together. I shade on different layers than color, so that's why there's still something there. So in order to group layers together, let's say I wanted to take like these top layers and group them all together, you can slide to the right. See how that turns that layer blue? So it'll take the layer that you've selected and any other layers that you slide right and select them. And to group them, you can just hit group or, yeah, you can just hit group. This brings us to another very, very important facet of Procreate, which is undoing and redoing. I believe these are the default gestures if they haven't changed over the years. So let's say I do something and I make a mess of it. Oh no, where's my beautiful, beautiful art piece? I make a mess of something and I need to undo it. There's two ways to undo. There's an undo button over down on the bottom here and a redo button right beneath it. Or, and this is what became muscle memory for me, tapping with 2 fingers undoes. Tapping with 3 fingers redoes. Redoes. There. So that's one of like the primary gestures that I use in Procreate all the time. Just keep in mind if you go back out to your gallery, you will not be able to undo from there. Procreate auto saves everything. There is no like save button. So yes, that's grouping layers. If you need any layer settings, you press and hold. Wait, no. Yeah, if you need any layer settings, you just press on the layer, and it'll give you options to rename it, select it, which would select the artwork that is present on that layer, copy that layer, fillet, clear, alpha lock, mask, clipping mask, drawing assist, inverse, reference, merge down, combine down, and if you have rulers set, it will also allow you to turn those on. So yeah, just the basics of layers. Add a new layer with the plus sign. If you need to change anything about it, just tap on it. You can tap on it with your finger as well. And if you need to delete the layer, you can delete it here, you can duplicate it here, and then locking it means that you will no longer be able to edit it anymore. And again, if you need to group, you swipe the other direction. So delete is this way, combining is that way. Another interesting thing about layers is that you can merge them. So if you have 3 layers that you want merged together, there's a couple ways to do this. You can group flatten. That's one of the ways that I like to do it. Or you can take all of those 3 together and then pinch them. I believe you can do it even if you don't have them highlighted. Yes, you can. Just be careful because everything is gesture based. You might accidentally make a mistake that you wouldn't have expected to make. So there's that. That's the layers, which is very important for digital art just in general. And then, oh, and right here, let's go to one of these layers because this will show it very clearly. So this is a multiply layer. Multiply is a blending mode. I could go into blending modes in detail, but I'm gonna assume you know what they are. If not, look it up. But here, if you click like the little, by default it's an N. In this layer, it's an M. Here you can change the opacity of the layer, which will, in this case, change the opacity of the shading. And you can also change the blending mode. So I had this on multiply because that's what I use for shading. But I can change this to any type of blending mode. By default, it'll be normal, which will mean whatever color you're using is the color that will show up. Lighten, screen, overlay. There's a whole bunch of them that can make some like really odd effects depending on what you have going on. I'm going back to multiply. But yeah, it's an interesting way to add different types of color, but that's how you change it and how you can change opacity. I think that's everything for layers. Color. Procreate has a color wheel that I've heard that some color enthusiasts hate. I'm fine with it, in all honesty. But it is pretty simple where anywhere around the circle, that will get you the color that you want, and then you can change like how bright you want it, how light you want it, how dark you want it, and anywhere in between. If you're used to other art softwares and you want to be able to clearly see that I am lowering saturation or something like that, you can switch to classic, which will bring you away from the disk, and instead you choose your color down here. And then you can change the saturation and change the brightness of your selected color. Harmony is used if you like to try to create your own color palettes and you would like them to, work within color theory concepts. So there's different options for this. There's split complementary, which will you select a color and then it'll give you two other colors to work with. And you can do complementary, which is directly across the color wheel. Analogous, and I can't pronounce anything, as you'll find out. Which just gets you three very similar colors to each other. Triadic, which will be an equilateral triangle, and tetradic, which is a square. These are just different ways to make color palettes if you so desire. Value, this is where you can actually just see the different RGB values and hexadecimal values for the color. So let's say you want to make, let's say you really want to make the color FFB 5CF because that's the color that, I don't know, your favorite Discord role is, in my case. Then you can actually see its RGB values and its HSB values, so hue, saturation, brightness. And then palettes. There, Procreate has these default palettes. I think up to Ascend here. This skin tones one I think I made, but Procreate has some default palettes that will be at the bottom of all of the other all of the other color wheel options. And you'll be able to just, if you select from a palette, it will make that your default palette. So if I switch back to the disk, I can switch between each of these colors, draw with that color, and it's one of the ways to just make the workflow a lot faster. I've created custom palettes, especially because I'm an emote artist and I generally am making anywhere between 3 to 10 emotes for one client, and sometimes they'll commission me after I've completed a batch anyway. So I want to be able to return to those exact same values I used originally. In cases like that where you want to make a color palette, what you can do is press this little plus sign, create new palette. If you create from camera or from file, you can literally take a photo and Procreate will make a palette for you. But if I say create new palette, it'll give me an untitled palette. I can click on untitled to rename it to whatever I want. And then all I have to do is, either use the color wheel to make whatever color I want, and then I just click. There's my new color. I can also select something already on my artwork. Click. There. I have another color added to my palette. So on and so forth. To delete a color, you can hold down on it, press delete swatch, or if you want to replace a color, you can hold down on it and it should give you the option to either delete the swatch or switch it to the color that you currently have selected. So I'm going to delete that color palette. We see you can share them, duplicate them, and delete them. Delete. It's gone. Okay. So that's the color palette and the color wheel and everything like that. That's layers. And then here are our main drawing tools. So here is the brush tool. So hitting it once will just switch it if you have another tool selected. If you hit it again, it will bring you your brush library. Procreate has a lot of awesome default brushes, and honestly, I use mainly default Procreate brushes myself. There's some online that you can download. You can edit them. If you, I've edited some of the Procreate brushes just to make them larger for bigger canvases. But yeah, this is just how you pick different types of brushes, and they all are very different, and I just recommend that you try them out yourself because depending on your application and what you would like to do with Procreate, there's, a whole mess of different things that that you might use that are way different from what I use. If you have a specific pencil that you would like to edit, you just hit it after you've selected it, and then you can change all of these settings however you so desire. And I don't know how to make brushes that well other than changing their size and such, so I'm not going to show you how to mess with it. But that's how you switch between, let's say you're sketching and you want like a pencil. I want big boy because it's bigger. Let's say you're sketching and you want a pencil. You have a pencil and let's say you want to switch to inking now and you want like a more pen, you can switch to a pen, which is a lot, you know, smoother, might have a stabilizer on it, etc. So, you know, that's the basics of the pencil. So let's use that to actually let's use this to do a little demonstration here. So let's say I want to blend these two colors together. Um, that brings in, this is the smudge tool. Much like the pen tool, you can select all of the different textures from all of these other, you know, tools that you have. It gives you the same brush library as the pen does. And then you can literally blend things together. Another thing of note, if you're using an iPad with an Apple Pencil, Apple Pencils are sensitive depending on if you're holding them straight on the, here, let's make that smaller so it's more, depending on if you're holding them straight on the canvas versus if you tilt them. And it depends on the brush, what it might do, but so with the smudge tool, we can like blend these together. I personally don't use the smudge tool very frequently, so I'm not the expert in it. And then right over here is our handy eraser, and we can, much same as the smudge and the brush, we can change it to whatever sort of texture size that we want it to. Oh my gosh, look, underneath, there's my, oh my gosh, my butterfly, it's under there. It's a moth, but anyway, that's how you use each of those. To change the size of your brush, your eraser, or your smudge tool, any one of them, you use this slider over here. This is the size. That's small. That's large. Anywhere in between. Little fun thing, if you have a specific size that you would like to keep, you can, there's a way to, how do you do that? Oh yeah, if you click on your little like notch, I guess, you can press the plus sign and it'll add like a saved spot that it'll snap to so that you're always, you know, sketching at that size or whatever. Press the little minus sign to get rid of it. This changes your opacity. So if you want to do something that isn't as stark or you want to layer things on top of each other, especially with like the painterly brushes, you can do that. And like I said before, this is undo, that's redo, or you can do this. Another thing about undoing and redoing is, especially when you're using the finger commands, if you, let's undo the rest of these. If you redo with 3 fingers and then hold them, it will redo as many steps as you're holding them down. Same with undoing. It'll undo as many steps as you're holding your fingers down. This little thing in the middle actually depends on your Procreate settings. Like if you go into, I think it's gesture controls, that controls what this little square does. I don't know what it does by default because I know I've changed it by now. So yes, if you would like to color pick in Procreate, then you hold down with your finger, not with your pen because it'll assume that you're drawing, but with your finger, you hold down and you can select, you can move it around to select whatever color you want. Now that's the color I'm using. Yes. Okay. This is so scuffed, but so good. So let's say, actually I don't need to draw something because I have this here. So let's say I need to, let me shut off all of my little color and stuff, and let's say I'm working on like the line work of this piece, and I need to move it around or change it in some way. That's where the selection and the transform tools come in. The selection tool by default is a like freehand lasso tool that you can select whatever you want, and you can lift your pen off, make straight lines with it, kind of make it like a poly select tool. Let's say I just selected the moth there, and then so the moth is selected. So if I like were to go on a different layer and like drop a color. Oh my gosh, I forgot to show how to drop a color. You take a color, you literally take it um from the color selection over here, take it onto your canvas, drop it. It's so simple. It's so nice. Um, and it mainly works if you want to make like the outline. I want to make this wing a certain color, let's say, like really quickly here. I didn't close it the whole way. Boom, the wing's a different color now. So, um, so selecting. So now that we have that area selected, I have to make sure I go back to this line art. I go over here to transform. This by default will be uniform transform, I think. I don't know. It's either uniform or freeform. And uniform moves things in exactly the same proportions. Even if I grab on the side here, it will always be that same proportion as it was originally. Freeform lets you grab any bit of it and squish it in any direction that you might want. You can still move it this way. The other thing about freeform is if you hold down on a point and then move it, then you can get these like wonky angles, which can help with perspective. Distort, which is getting those wonky angles by default. And warp, which lets you literally move it kind of fluidly, which can help if your sketch is kind of wonky. And see how I was able to kind of make it so that the wings just got bigger and the moth itself kind of stayed the same? That's kind of the blessing of the warp idea. But obviously it's different from how we started. It's a nice way to like tweak things. Here in transform, that's also where we get flip horizontal to make things go the opposite direction, flip vertical, rotating, fit to canvas, which will make it the full size of the canvas, and I need to use that more, holy crap. I do not, and this is interpolation, I don't know much about it, that's fancy. Reset will bring it back to wherever it was originally. So that's selecting and transforming. The other thing about selection, there's an automatic selection, which will just grab things. By the way, the selection works by layer, and so does transform. If you'd like to transform multiple layers at once, you have to select them together like I showed earlier. So yeah, if I automatically select, the program itself will try to select something. Also, if you select and then you can drag to change your selection threshold. So if you want to select everything except for the black, you can move it all the way up here, but it's just a way to tell the program how much you want selected by the automatic way of doing it. There's a rectangle selection tool, which I'm sure many people are familiar with, and an ellipse selection tool. Also with selecting, you can invert your selection, which will take what was selected and just do the opposite of it. You can copy and paste. There's another couple things here. You can color fill. There you go. It's automatically color filled. You can clear the selection, which will delete anything inside of it. Wait, will it delete anything inside of it, or will it just get rid of your selection? I'm not exactly sure. I don't use it. So there's that. And then up here, we have adjustments. So let's open back up our colors for our lovely, lovely boop we got going on here. So I've selected the layer that has my dragon's like scale color, this purple. I have that layer selected. If I go to hue, saturation, and brightness, I can then change the saturation, make it a lot more bright and vibrant, make it a lot more grayscale, where 50% is always where it starts when you select your layer. You can change the brightness. You can bring it up. You can bring it down, all the way to like a pure white and a pure black. And hue will change the color of your layer. So if you want to make any sort of rave effects, this is definitely a way to do that. I'm just going to undo that. Color balance is similar. It's just changing using a different set of things. I don't really know much about it, sorry. Curves is another way to change your colors. All of those are ways to change your colors. I mainly only use hue, saturation, brightness. So then blurs. Blurs are a lot of fun. Let us actually merge all of this image down to one layer real quick. Get rid of these. Let me merge all of these down to one layer. So now everything except for the sparkles are on one layer. So blurs, Gaussian blur helps. If you're don't have the right layer selected, it'll yell at you. Gaussian blur is a uniform blur. So it'll make your entire image blurry to the same regard, and you change it by moving your finger or your pencil after selecting Gaussian blur. And you can move it to whatever level you want it to be moved to, if we want it a little blurry. And you can undo, redo. That's Gaussian blur. Motion blur is a type of blur where it picks a point, whatever point you put your finger down on, and depending on where you move from there, it'll allow the blur to go in different directions, and also change by how far away you move from the point. Let's undo those. And perspective blur, which this is your like focal point. Let's say we want to focus on the moth's head. That makes it so that that point is in focus and all the points around it are out of focus, and you adjust that with the slider just as you did before with the other blurs. There's some other fun effects here. I'm not going to mainly get into those. I think blurs are one of the more important things, personally, especially Gaussian blur. I use it quite frequently, so that's why I pointed out. And now we got actions. Here we got some basics in add. We have insert a file, which isn't generally helpful unless you actually have, let's say someone gets you a Photoshop file. It would be downloaded to your files and you would have to upload it here. But if you just want to put a picture, for example, you can insert a photo and it'll open up your gallery, and you can insert a photo onto your piece. It's really nice if you want to have like a reference or something like that. Add text. Open up a way for you to add text, and if you click over here, this is like how you change your font and your size and stuff. You can import fonts into Procreate too, which is quite nice. And then here's your cut, copy, paste, all of that stuff. Canvas settings. Crop and resize lets you make your canvas bigger, make your canvas smaller. If you go into settings, then you can put a strict number of pixels. If you click this little link, it'll make sure you're keeping the same aspect ratio. Change your DPI, and if you click Resample Canvas and you make your canvas bigger, it'll also resize the artwork on the canvas. You turn that off though, it won't turn off. Snapping, I think, is just a way to make it, yeah, it just snaps it to certain sizes and stuff. So I'm just gonna reset that. Crop or resize. Animation assist you use if you want to make animations. You can add frames, get rid of frames, and frames work as layer groups in Procreate, just an FYI. Page assist is very similar, except formatted as pages instead of as an animation. And drawing guide. Drawing guide is so important. So if you click on drawing guide and click edit drawing guide, we have a bunch of different options. We have a 2D grid, which you can rotate, change the color of, change the thickness of, which you can use just as a base reference, or now that I have this 2D grid on, if I make a new layer, I now have this option to turn on drawing assist on that layer, which means that my movements will snap to a direction defined by the drawing guide. So that's 2D grid. You can change like the grid size to whatever you want. You can change thickness, opacity, whatever. Isometric. Isometric is fun. This is how you make. Okay, let's shut off my boop. This is how you make 3D isometric drawings, which is really nice for, let's say you want to like make some cute buildings, things like that. I love isometric stuff. Edit drawing guide. Perspective. So for perspective, you have to actually tap to create a vanishing point. So if you want 1 point perspective, you click 1 single point. If you want 2 point perspective, you click 2 points. I'm not going to get into that because I don't really use the perspective grid so much, but all you really have to do is edit those points, and then if you you just have to edit those points to be able to draw in perspective. Like that. Yeah. I don't draw things in perspective very frequently, because I just don't want to. So generally speaking, I don't. But you get how that's supposed to go, I think. I usually do perspective like by hand or in my head or by looking at a reference instead of using the rulers. And symmetry. Symmetry is fun because it does everything on both sides of the canvas at the same time. So if I make a little heart over here, it'll make a little heart on the other side. If I, put some squiggles, it'll put some squiggles on the other side. And there's a bunch of different symmetry guides. If you click options, you can make it horizontal, you can do quadrants, you can use radial. They all have their uses, and I've used like all of them, and they're a lovely, lovely tool. So those are the drawing guides. Reference. Reference is a cool thing. It gives you this little pop-up that you can move anywhere on your screen. You can click image to you can click canvas, and it'll just show your canvas no matter how much like you zoom in. The reference will show you a live view of what is happening on your canvas even if you're zoomed in. So like let's say I start adding like little, I'm so zoomed in that I don't know how these little hearts and dots and stuff are gonna look. But if I look at my reference, I'm able to see without having to zoom out. So that's the benefit of the canvas reference. There is an image reference, which allows you to import an image. So if there's something that you need to reference to know how it is drawn, you can simply import it. And so you have that off to the side. You can zoom in, you can zoom out, you can tilt it. It's a very useful tool if you don't like to just import images into your canvases. Normally I'm referencing multiple images at once, so I don't use this feature, but it's still a very, very cool tool. And then there's a face one if you do self-portraits, and it'll go to your camera and, oh god, it'll put it on your face. I forgot how cursed it is. It'll put it on your face. So like let's say you're a and it'll put little guides on your canvas. Oh my gosh, I forgot about this. Oh, I want a mustache. Let's get a mustache. That's what the face one does. There's options for it. I think there's just ones. So it's one of the newer features of Procreate. It's a little cursed, I'd say. But it's cool. But yes, you can make it like bigger or smaller as well and move it anywhere on your canvas. All right, let's stop with the face because that's freaking me out. Um, get that back there. You can close it with a little X. Let's get rid of these. Let's go back to my boob. I forgot that's what the face one did. I thought it was just a camera so you could do self-portraits. I was wrong. Um, so that's the reference thing. Flip horizontal, flips the canvas horizontally, flip vertical, flips it vertically, flips the entire canvas, not layer by layer. It's very useful to check to make sure that something will look good in both directions, and as an emote artist on a platform that actively flips emotes as something that people can just do, I do not do this enough. So, very important. Remember to flip your canvas. Let's get it back to normal. Canvas information shows interesting things about your canvas, including how long you've been spending on your piece of art. Okay, share is how you export things. Procreate and PSDs are files that'll break it down into layers. If you want to share to a computer, using PSD works for most art softwares because that's a Photoshop file. Procreate will work if you're sending it from your iPad to other iPads or to yourself, like in the future. PDF will convert it to PDF. JPEG is a JPEG. PNG will convert it to PNG and TIFF. There's also ways to share layers. So you can have each individual layer be sent as a PDF, PNG files, or as an animated GIF, animated PNG, MP4, and HEVC if you're into animating. Okay, video. Video is fun because the video lets you rewatch what you've already done. And it essentially Procreate records every single little action that you do. And so if you look at the video, you can go back and see what it turned into. Which is really cool. You can speed up the video, slow it down by like dragging. So like here you can see how I started like messing for the tutorial. But yeah, it allows you to see your process and like how you start to do things. As you can see, I went through a couple different ideas for this before I landed like where I got. So yeah, the video is a very, very cool feature. I don't know when I okay. So, and to export that video, you can just click export time-lapse video at full length or 30 seconds if you want to post that somewhere. Just, keep in mind as someone who tends to like write on my canvas, make sure if you're sharing it somewhere, that it's appropriate for wherever you want to share it. And then preferences, you can turn Procreate in light mode. I don't know why, but you can if you're a light mode person. Right hand interface. This is better if you are a lefty. I am not a lefty. So the odds of me drawing and then accidentally hitting a setting over here is pretty high. But you can turn that on if you are a lefty. That way, when you're drawing, you're not messing up the settings over here, and you just reach over here. Brush cursor allows you to actually see what your brush looks like, I think. Normally. I can't see it. Is it because I'm not... That's what I thought brush cursor... Did I not turn it on? I don't know. I thought brush cursor just allowed you to see what your brush actually looks like. But I could be just completely wrong. I don't know what that does then. Oh, yeah, you can see it. It's like right under my pencil, and it's very slight. But there is a little cursor like other art programs. Okay. Dynamic brush scaling, I'm not sure exactly what. Oh, I think that's just allowing your brushes to change depending on how much you're pushing down on it. I don't know what, oh, okay. Project canvas means, that, that's good if you're a streamer like me. What? It made it so that my mirroring software doesn't pick up on the fact that I'm zooming it. I'm learning things too today. Oh my god. Okay. So that's all of those settings. My mind is blown. Legacy Connect Legacy Stylus is getting a pen that isn't an Apple Pencil. Pressure and smoothing. There's just other controls here, and if you go to gesture controls, this is where you can change any of the gestures if any of them work better for you a different way. I think that covers pretty much everything. Anything else is like, that's everything about like Procreate itself. Anything else is kind of, you learn from doing digital art in general, especially when it comes to like layer masking and things like that. um it's, things come with time. Also, if you want your canvas at the very end here, if you want your canvas to be zoomed in, obviously you can do that by pinching your fingers just like you're on your phone and you need to change something. Another interesting thing about Procreate is if you rotate your iPad, it changes the interface, but not your drawing. The drawing will always be rotated the same way, even if you rotate your iPad. Except maybe upside down. That might be the difference. But you get what I'm saying. So, no, don't do that to me. Okay. No, don't do that to me either. Some of the gesture controls are a bit wonky because then they'll work for the iPad itself and not Procreate. Yeah, I suggest you go into gesture controls and go through each of these and like kind of see what they are, because there's some by default that might be a little bit weird. Also, if you want to get rid of all of the user interface, I think you tap with 4 fingers by default. Tap with 4 fingers, bring it back. So go into those gesture controls, see what you can change that works for you, and yeah, this was very scuffed, like insanely scuffed. But I hope this helps. I learned some things today. I can't believe that I could have been doing this the whole time for my streams. I don't even know if that's what I would want or if what people would want to watch from me, but like, that's so funny. That's literally okay. Well, my mind is blown, like I've said. So, happy that you've stuck around to this point. Thank you so much for watching, and to those of you that I made this tutorial for, sorry that it's so long. I went into everything though. And if you want to know things about like digital art, just reach out to me. So, yeah, have a good day. Haha, JK, I literally went to go make the thumbnail for the video and I remembered something that is useful. So, um, so sorry. If you're drawing something, if you're drawing something and you want a straight line, hold a line straight and then just hold it, and then it will snap to creating an actual line. Same works for every other shape in the book. You can make an ellipse and edit it while you're doing it. So you hold it and then you can change the size and the rotation. You can then click edit shape and you can say, no, actually I wanted a circle, and it'll make a circle that you can change the size of. You can make a square, rectangle, any other thing that same way. So like I want to make a rectangle, it'll make a shape from it, but I can say no, I wanted a rectangle and it will make it a rectangle for me. So yeah, if you need to make any sort of shapes or straight lines, this is very useful, especially when you can't use um the rulers and stuff. So yeah, anyway, sorry to like, tack that onto the end there, but yeah.